All right, so today we're talking about some of our major addenda that we use. So the big ones that we're used to and the ones that really come into play in our contracts are the finance addendum, the optional clause addendum, and the inspection addendum. Those are like the big three. Now, not everybody uses the title addendum. Not everybody uses the homeowner's insurance addendum. Um, but pretty much those three come into play. Um, and we've talked a lot about the finance addendum, and let me just share with you a few things that I'm seeing that are going on that you need to be aware of. And not only, host disabled participant screen sharing. Well, how dare that host? Are you the host?
I don't think I am. Who's the host? Who came in first?
The host?
Oh, I was on first.
Were you on first? Are you the host?
That's probably why I was recording me, Luis. And we probably shouldn't have been recorded.
Go up to the top three dots in your top right-hand corner.
Am I the host?
Little blue. Up here.
Oh, these dots.
Maybe I am the host. I don't think I should be though. No, it has a button at the bottom for me to claim host, so I can't be host.
Doesn't say you're the host either.
Luis,
who's the host?
Oh, for Pete's sake.
You want me to, I have an option to claim host. Do you want me to claim host and then see if I can pass it to you?
You can claim host?
It just says claim host. I'll go ahead and do it real quick. No,
yeah,
it's asking me to put a key in.
Yeah, go ahead and do it.
It's asking me for a key, for a host key to claim the role.
A host key?
Yeah, so it's whoever put the Zoom together.
It's on Facebook.
Yeah, but that's just the link to get here.
Right. Do we know who created that link?
Yeah, but is it passcode Ron 2018?
No, there's a key.
Well,
what was the passcode?
Huh?
What was the passcode?
Ron, capital R-O-N 2018.
Capital R-O-N 2018.
No, it's not gonna. It's not letting me put any numbers in it, but I'll just put 2018.
Can you go up and ask Courtney if she knows what the key is, please?
If I leave, though, wouldn't it be able to, claim it? But yes, I can. Ow! I'm not in
no, because you should be able to click on that and it should be able to, it would say a share host or would say a switch host. But it's not doing that, so I'm sorry, guys.
So not many people use that optional clauses?
Optional clauses, yes. It's actually a required document.
That's what I thought. So
yeah, mostly because of that first paragraph.
Yeah.
But there's other things in the optional clauses that are really, I think, vitally important that we need to talk about with our buyers and sellers. And I wish I could share my screen, but I can't. Well, let me do this then. Let's just do this.
What I do with the optional clauses, one of the things I do is that I forget where it's at in the section in optional clauses. I'll look it up in just a second, but what I do is I put everything that's going to be included in it. So I'll list out the addendums and everything that I'm using, all of the
right. Right. Yeah, that
I'll have to go look. Because you need to log in through your account, not the link.
I need to log in through my account?
Your personal account.
Okay, I'm gonna get off and then get back on.
Okay, watch out. Somebody's sneaking up on you, Katie.
Oh,
Yeah, I know, right? It's ugly.
well, let's see if this works. Unbelievable.
Did you get it?
Nope. Still says host disabled participant screen sharing.
And you logged into your account before you clicked on the link to come in?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's kind of weird because it should be in my account, so I should be able to do whatever I want, right?
Correct. When you do the screen sharing, let's
Right.
see, where's it at? Does yours at the bottom on the, if you click on participants, it should open that panel on the side so you can see all the participants. And at the very bottom of that panel, it should say claim host if you're on a computer. And if you click on claim host, then it's going to ask you either to log into your account or to use the code. And so if you log into your account there, it may have not have logged in right or correctly.
Interesting. Says now I'm the host.
Nice.
Good job.
You know, it's just all magic to me. I mean, it's just like, you know, how does this work? I'm sitting here in front of my computer screen and you're able to, wherever you are, see and hear what I'm doing
It's creepy.
through little wires or through the air. It's all collected and
It's
reassembled.
through Big Brother.
Yep.
Just, yeah, pretty wild.
Way different than the original Fly movie.
Right? Yeah. Okay, so we were talking about optional clauses. And I suppose if I was going to do that, it would be helpful to share my screen. That's why we did that in the first place. So one of the big things, or one of the things that sometimes gets missed is, and agents who don't use this, is this paragraph number 1. This is really for the agent and their brokerages to put the buyer and the seller on notice that nobody's making any representations or guarantees or warranties about the property, the square footage of the property, the accuracy of the measurements, whether they're encroachments, any of that. The buyer is advised to verify lot size, square footage, encroachments, and buyer's own satisfaction. And so that is one of the main reasons why this form, where this particular addenda is required in our compliance department, is particularly because of that first one. The title insurance, we never changed the title insurance.
So
But the other
Ron,
one,
on that first one you mentioned, We would
Yeah.
we would check the box then on that one.
Yes, always check this box.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, in my way I've set up my templates in zip forms, it's automatically checked.
And so when you have the buyer, how do you explain that to them? Where do you go to find that information, or what do you tell them? Because it's not up to me as their agent to give them that information.
No, so we want to be the source of the source, right? So if they've got questions about the size of the lot, boundaries, they really need to go to the county assessor's sites. That's why I think a plat map is helpful, because it'll show the boundary, it'll show easements and things like that. In fact, the Columbia Park Trail lot, the last lot that I'm dealing with, the neighbors had it encroached on the property. And now we're looking at having to do a boundary adjustment. So,
And so basically this clause right here, this section right here, the only thing we're saying is we're not making any guarantees. We didn't go out and measure anything, and we're not verifying ourselves or
Right.
the listing broker or selling broker, whoever. But if they want the information, they can feel free to get that information, and we could maybe connect them with people that can give them that, like, I don't
Right.
know, city planner or anything like that, where they could.
yeah, city planning department,
Title
county
company.
assessors, title company is another great resource for that. If they're worried about surveying, give them a recommendation for survey companies that are available in town. But we don't want to be the source of the information. We want to provide people that they can go to get the information they need to their satisfaction.
Okay.
And that also eliminates the possibility that there's something lost in translation, right? So you think you heard what you heard from the city planning or county assessors, what you discovered in the county assessors or from the title company, and then you attempt to communicate that. It's just better if they get that information themselves. Okay. So that's where, again, as a realtor, it's really important that you have that network of relationships that you're able to pull on if anything like that comes up. So, for instance, the Columbia Park Trail property, there's actually 3 surveyors that I've recommended in the past, and I recommended the owner get a hold of one of the surveyor companies. So, of course, it didn't help that after the surveyor went out there and planted the stakes, the neighbor came out there and pulled all the stakes up. That didn't serve our purposes very well. So we suddenly knew that we had a problem with the neighbor. He didn't agree with the boundary where the surveyor put the boundary. Problem is that he had landscaped and pushed his property over the boundary line and had done it like 10 years ago, and so had done it long enough where he had aggressive possession. And so kind of stinks, but in the end, probably the easiest way to deal with it would be to just do a boundary adjustment and just give up the land. But the problem is if you don't do that as the owner, you're going to have troubles down the road with the title company or with the new owner entitled. So you need to make sure and get those boundaries taken care of. Like I said, we don't change anything in the title insurance paragraph. What comes in the boilerplate language in Form 21 is what we want to stick with. And so we never change that. These other ones are all notices that are given, the seller to clean the property, any personal property that's left on the in the home or on the property. Same way with identification of utilities. Do any of these 3 paragraphs add anything to the contract as it's already written without the optional clauses? Can you think of anything?
Can you say that again?
Is there anything that these 3 paragraphs do or provide that's not already provided in our purchase and sales agreement, Form 21. Is there some extra protection? I mean, wouldn't you assume that the seller's going to clean the property? Wouldn't you assume that the seller knows that if they leave anything behind, that's now belongs to the new owner?
You would assume that, but I've been.
Oh, I'm just
assume.
I'm not saying I would. I mean, can't you assume? Wouldn't it be fair to assume?
It would be reasonable, but I still wouldn't assume it. I would rather have redundancy than something.
Right, and so that's exactly right. Yeah, and Katie said, "Well, still don't." But and that's exactly right. The reason why we use these is it just helps to clarify what the expectations are going to be. Right.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, the seller cleaning. Is there anything in there that provides for a recourse if the property's not cleaned? No. There's no remedy there, is there? Doesn't say that seller's going to pay a fine or anything like that. It just says seller shall clean the interiors of any structure and remove all trash, debris, rubbish from the property prior to buyer taking possession. That's not performed. There's not a remedy for the buyer. There's no earnest money to buyer because it's the buyer's earnest money anyway, right? I suppose if it's really bad, buyer could decide not to sign the closing documents and not close the transaction until that work was performed, right?
But usually that happens in the morning when they move out.
That's right. Yeah, they move out at 9 o'clock and leave a bunch of stuff behind, right?
But I guess that also would come into the what is it, the 3 days prior to closing to go in and do a walkthrough.
Do the walkthrough is huge, very important. Yeah, very good. Yes. So my point is that these really are meant to highlight what's important, but we need to also recognize that there's not a lot of teeth in these. Okay. And there's not a lot of recourse for the buyer if the property's not sold. If there's personal property that's left, we just had this happen in our office where personal property was left, and then seller wants to show up and claim it after being gone for a week. But buyer has grown attached to it and really doesn't want to give it up. And according to the language, he thinks it belongs his now, right? Any personal property, man, property shall become the property of the buyer and may be retained or disposed of as buyer determines. Okay, so we had a little bit of a scuffle over that. Buyer ended up becoming the good guy and deciding, it's not that big of a deal. I'll just give it to him anyway. But he had every right to hold his ground and say, no, you left it, it's mine.
Right.
Same way with utilities. We already have our utilities addendum, the 22K. So this might not necessarily, that particular paragraph might not necessarily be wholly necessary. Okay. Paragraph 6 deals with new insulation, and that, or new insulation, new construction, and the builder has to give a determination of what the insulation type and R value is and all of that. It's interesting that it's on this form. It's not on a different form for new construction. And then the leased property is an important one, and the big one that catches everybody, it seems like, is propane tanks. So if they have a fireplace, you need to make sure that they're not on a propane tank. And that the tank's not leased, and if it's leased, that the lease agreement can be assumed, that there's agreement as to whether the tank is going to be filled or it's not going to be filled, If there's gas in it, is the buyer going to reimburse the seller for the gas that's left in the tank? Right? That discussion needs to be had with both parties. Sometimes it's written in there that the seller's going to leave the tank full. The seller needs to fill the tank and leave the buyer with a full tank. Sometimes it's the buyer is going to reimburse the seller for whatever gas is left in the propane tank. So I've seen it go both ways. Don't see so much about security systems anymore. That used to be a big thing, and especially satellites. Man, it's been a long time since I sold a house with a satellite dish or satellite equipment, right? So the top of the second page deals with being notified of the lease agreement that goes with anything. And like I said, most of the time that's with the propane tank. So the homeowners association review period and the homeowners association transfer fee are two that often get missed. And I see it get missed a lot. I don't know how big of a deal it can be until somebody all of a sudden raises the issue, but you do need to be careful, particularly with some of the newer subdivisions that have homeowners associations and their CC&Rs and things like that. That buyer has an opportunity to look those over before they get into a neighborhood that they really can't stand because it's so restrictive. And I think we've had more problems with the hyper restrictive homeowners association versus just homeowners associations in general. It seems to me like most people are aware in new developments that they're entering into a homeowners association. So I think that's kind of settled. But I still run into buyers who, they will absolutely not look at any home in any homeowner association. Katie says that would be her.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
I know several people like that.
Yeah. So, so that is just something to really be aware of and make sure that, particularly if you're working with buyers, that they are prepared to deal with, and also sellers are prepared to have and provide those documents to the buyer, right? The homeowners association transfer fee, I've seen that more with condos than I have with just your residential type of homeowners associations. Maybe they're out there. I think it's a bigger deal on the other side of the mountains than here. And then excluded items. What kind of items may be put in this paragraph being excluded items? Can you think of anything? What would you exclude possibly?
Would this be like, this is maybe way off, but like if they decided, like, for example, the washer and dryer was not going to be on there and they decided they were going to take that with them, and so then they mentioned that as excluded, but when they take it away, they have to repair the damage if there is any?
Yeah, so this would be a good place to put that. A lot of what I've seen is typically like sheds, smaller sheds.
Okay, got it.
Garden sheds, or maybe some kind of garden feature or something.
Now, when we're talking about it's where it says any of the damage to the property caused by removal, would that include like fencing if they were taking away like a shed or something like that, and fencing, fence post, lawn, garbage, like running over sprinkler heads, that kind of stuff? Katie's saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Like when I move, I'll be taking out several pieces of my yard,
Right.
and I can't just leave big holes in it.
So kind of the weird thing about this particular paragraph is it's filled out by the buyer. but really it's something that should be
Countered
by the seller. So typically, when I've seen this, and I've used this a couple times in a counter, we've checked this box as a listing agent. I've checked this box, and then we've written in here shed, lawn ornament, and any other things that were going to be excluded. And then I had them initial that, and then made sure that the buyers initialed that. Again, providing clarity around what the seller is going to take with them.
So you can't, this is not a section like, for example, okay, so I had some buyers that went to see this property and they loved the whole thing, walk out in the back lawn, and it had a bunch of plants. And it even had like a little greenhouse thing and everything like that. And they hated plants. They just wanted lawn and that's it. They didn't want the plants. So you wouldn't like check this box and then put all the plants to be removed.
No.
That would go under other.
That would go under other, yeah. I had something similar.
That's weird.
Yeah, I had something similar. It was one of those play sets.
Okay.
And the listing agent had put in the MLS that the play set was going to stay with the house. People didn't want the play set.
Yeah, I wouldn't want it.
Right. So we wrote in the other at the bottom of the form here, seller to remove play set, which they weren't happy about, but they did it. Of course, the home warranty is pretty common. And I don't think there's a lot of confusion around that. I see that held done a lot. So this other box, so be careful of this other box, both when you write in it as well as when you are taking offers. We've had a few agents who accepted offers and their buyers accepted offers, but they didn't look at this blank spot here, and the seller and the listing agent the buyer and the selling agent had put some stuff in there that ended up impacting the listing side. So you really need to be careful about double checking this particular box. It's kind of like the items box on the front of the Form 21. Same way, that you need to really be careful about making sure what boxes are checked there. Okay.
So like if I'm writing up an offer and I'm using this form and I put in there and I do like what you were talking about, get rid of the play set, or we don't want all the plants, whatever it is.
Right.
I usually write at the beginning that on the offer that I present, I have like an offer summary that kind of goes over the points. It wouldn't be something obligatory, but I would probably just give them a heads up. Like, would you reference the spot on there in the form?
I would.
The other in the optional clauses, or
I would. Form 22D line 12. Notice that
Okay.
I
would hate that. I could understand a seller or even a seller's agent appreciating that heads up and actually going in your favor, knowing that, well, at least they'll let us know and try to slip one by us.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to play, gotcha, right?
Right.
And so we're really trying to avoid that. And it's not like we're trying to sneak stuff under the radar. We added that in later or changed that later. That's what that's for. What you're suggesting is a great way of handling that. Just put it up front. Let them know that it's there, right? But it's kind of crazy how many times agents have gotten caught because they didn't look at that paragraph or catch what had been put in that blank spot there in that paragraph, right? So let me talk real quickly here about the finance addendum and just share with you a little bit about what I'm seeing. Now, again, this is a major addendum. We all use it unless you're writing up a cash offer, which is pretty cool. There's some confusion about what makes up contingent funds and non-contingent funds, particularly when it comes to a buyer who's doing a first-time home buyer's purchase, and they're getting help with the down payment assistance. So how do you handle the down payment assistance that buyer is depending upon to finance their FHA loan? How should that be? What would be the best way of communicating that to the seller and to the listing agent?
I don't know if it's the best way to do it, but I put in DPA program, and I think it was it 3% or 6%? I forget what it was, but I put the percentage of it on that blank where it talks about what they should pay.
It's on page 2. Are you
Yeah,
talking about
let me
there
see.
where the seller shall pay?
No, where it says the amount of down payment, buyer shall pay, and then I put in that section DPA, and then put in the percentage.
So
and first-time home buyers.
right on line 9 of the first paragraph, buyer shall pay.
I believe so. Let me double check and make sure that I did that. Don't want to say something I'm doing and I'm not doing it.
Right.
Let's see.
Sure, other.
Where's it at?
I hadn't eat all those while you were gone.
Kind of addictive, aren't they?
I
Yeah.
have my fruit.
My daughter got some from Trader Joe's.
Oh, they're amazing.
They are hot.
They're hot. My favorite ones there are the cashews, but they're or those two, but they're sesame honey cashews.
Ooh. That sounds really good too. Did you find it, Jeremy?
For some reason I am not finding it, but yeah, it's on in the offer. I've been putting it right there.
But it can't be. I'm not saying the buyer is going to pay.
Yeah, the buyer shall pay. Is the buyer paying?
You probably
Yeah,
put it
so-
in the other.
Yeah, I did. I put so in where it says loan application, and then it says other, and I checked other, and then put WSF or
Okay.
WSHFC DPA, and it's 3.5% on the one that I did.
Okay.
And I also checked the FHA box, which they're going.
Yeah. So what we need to communicate to seller is that buyer's not putting anything down.
Correct.
Right. So buyer shall pay, and we're going to put 0 there. Checking other is a good place to do that. Other first-time home buyers assistance. It's also an FHA loan, so you can check both of those, right?
Right.
The other way to do it that I like is to use the evidence of funds and list it as contingent funds. So in the 22EF, you would check there's a line for a loan. You can check the loan, and that's where you would put the first-time home buyers assistance.
So you said 22EF.
EF, the evidence of funds.
Okay. Nice.
You'll be surprised at how many agents don't disclose that their buyers are doing that.
Yeah.
They technically cannot not tell you that.
Yeah,
Why would
Katie's
they
got
not
a good point. Katie's got a good point. There's a lot of agents who don't disclose that. And that actually puts the buyer's earnest money in jeopardy. So it needs to be disclosed. Those are contingent funds. That's a different loan. Buyer's not putting anything down out of their pocket. And notice that this says that the buyer's not relying upon any contingent funds. Well, we need to communicate to the seller that while the buyer's not relying upon any contingent funds, they are relying upon the first-time home buyer's assistance, qualifying for that,
Right.
right? So we need to communicate that.
Not letting people know that would be almost like me calling Katie and to say, hey, what are you doing on Friday? And when she says nothing, then say, because I'm moving and I need help.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's
But I mean,
but
Yeah.
this happens a lot, and so I wanted to point that out that Robert.
It's like, I know when he pushes that button, he's purposely not answering my call. But the thing with that is firms don't require it, but it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it should be required. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a big one. That's what I wanted to point out with the finance addendum. It seems like everything else is coming through pretty smooth. Remember this last line down here on the bottom of the page that the will not box needs to be checked. That should be just automatic. But that first-time home buyers assistance program and how we disclose that seems to be getting missed a lot or messed up a lot. Okay?
So then if you were going to do that, would you put check where it says FHA, check that, check other, put that in like I do normally, and then add the 22EF? And where would you put the disclosure of contingent funds? Would you put that under the loan, or would you go to the other and then describe it there?
I would put it under the loan. Here, let me show you.
So
Right
that
here.
first box where it says loan?
That first box. Because it's a type of loan.
Right.
Right? So I'm going to check loan. I'm going to check the disclosure of contingent funds. I'm going to check loan, and that's where I'm going to put the first-time home buyers assistance. And I would put the name of the lender there too.
Okay.
Right? So we're disclosing that. We're full disclosure here. The seller can't come back. The listing agent can come back to us and claim that we did not disclose that and then want to fight for the earnest money. No, we disclosed it. We let you guys know right up front that that these people are relying upon getting first-time home buyers assistance. Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, Katie's right. I've seen too many come through where all they've checked is the 22A FHA loan, and then they go in and they go ahead and put that they're putting down 3%. But what they're not telling us is that it's not their 3%. It's the 3% that's coming from the first-time home buyers program.
So now, Ron, real quick, just another question about that. What I did is I also put in the approval letter from the lender, and that also mentioned the type of loan it was with the.
Well, you would think that would be
A lot of them don't include the down payment.
you would think that would be enough, but often it's not. We're bad enough at not reading our contracts, let alone reading pre-approval letters.
Right. So then what I would do probably is do that, also refer to that on my offer summary then too.
Yeah, so doing an offer summary when you're sending an offer is, to me, that's just that's a professional way of presenting your offer.
Just don't forget anything.
Right?
What was that?
Forget anything.
Yeah, just don't forget anything.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me touch on one more thing because we're already running late. My time is running out. What happened?
You couldn't get it to work.
I couldn't get it to work. Yeah, I spent most of the time screwing around trying to get it to work. Okay, so let's jump over to the inspection addendum, Form 35, real quick. Okay. Now, we jokingly call this the get out of jail free addendum, right? The home buyer has 10 days to do an inspection, and if they choose, for whatever reason, and it can be a very subjective reason, they can choose to get out of the contract and retain their earnest money and move on. Okay. The hiccup that I've been seeing is that, well, two. Number one is when we're counting our inspection period days, when does day one start?
Mutual acceptance, isn't it? Or right? That it starts the countdown at mutual acceptance, but it starts day one as the next day.
Day one is the next day, right? So the day after you have a signed agreement, that day after you have mutual acceptance, that's day one. Okay. So we have some confusion around that. The other confusion is when we're counting that 10-day period, is it calendar days or business days? Do we count the holidays and weekends or not?
I just blinked on that one. It's one or the other. I know it for sure.
You're brilliant.
I want to say that if it's 10 days or more, it's going to be not just calendar day or not just work days, it's calendar days, isn't it?
Calendar days, exactly right. Yep. If it's 5 days or more, we count all the days. If it's 5 days or less, we don't count weekends or holidays. So, so that tends to trip up a lot of people as to when we start counting. So we start counting and we end, day 10 ends on a Saturday. Does it still end on a Saturday? Yes. The only time periods that cannot end on a weekend or a holiday is closing and possession.
Okay.
That's the only dates. All other dates can end on a weekend or holiday. And the reason for that is you can't fund or record on a weekend, right? Or a holiday. County courthouse is not going to be open to record title, right?
Or send your money.
Right. Or you'll be able to transfer funds. That's the reason why. But all other days can end on a weekend or holiday. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's some confusion around that. And so it's really good to know that when you're planning out your inspection periods and things like that. So if day 10 comes and it lands on a Saturday or Sunday, that's still the last day. And I've had a few agents who, well, I thought we'd skip the weekend and I had till Monday or whatever. So that's the first thing. Make sure you are aware of when day 1 is and when day 10 is. Because once that inspection period is passed, seller is not obligated to stretch that out. Now, out of the kindness of their heart, they may agree to extend the inspection period, and that happens a lot. Seller's not concerned. Seller says, yeah, I'll give you 2 or 3 more days. But we have had a few instances where sellers held fast. No, you didn't do the inspection in the 10 days. You waived the inspection. And that's exactly what happens. The inspection is waived.
Because their agent told them.
See, we had one, I had 2 different ones. One of them that we put 12 days in, but it was because the property was in Ritzville and the inspector was coming from Tri-Cities.
Right.
So they were fine with that within the 12 days instead of 10 days. The
Sure.
other one we did 5 days, and the 5th day was going to be a Friday, but because of some glitch in the computer, we didn't have it until when was it? I think it was Saturday was the day we gave it in, Saturday morning.
Right.
It was all sent out and it was ready to go on Friday night, about 8 o'clock, but it didn't get in because we had the inspection put off by the seller. So we had to choose a couple days. And
Right.
let the seller agent know he could either do it Wednesday or Friday, and we had put in there 5 days. And they were like, no, Wednesday's bad because we have a party, so we need to do it on Friday. And because of that, they were like, it was our fault that it went late anyway. He had to do the inspection, turn it in, get our response in, have everything done at the same time. So it was like, they were cool about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Most often you can work those out, if everybody keeps a cool head, and most often those can work out. But a buyer needs to understand, and the buyer's agent, the selling agent, needs to understand that if that 10-day period flies by, it puts you in a very awkward position. All right.
Well, that's like the additional inspections, I see.
Yeah,
Had a lot of problems with that when I was helping Amy, and
right.
when I'll let you explain it to ask for that.
What was that? You couldn't really hear very much.
Yeah,
There's
so-
a lot of problems with it.
So that, no, Katie brings up a good point, is when you're asking for additional inspections, right? So there's the response in 35R that says, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we want 5 extra days to do inspection, right? When does that 5-day period start? Starts whenever. So I might be in day 7 of the home inspection period, delivering over to the seller a notice that I need 5 extra days. Day 1 starts that following day of delivery of that notice. I don't get 10 days and then another 5 days on top of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So I have had some agents who have, figured out that, well, I'll wait until day 10 and then deliver the 5-day notice thing. Well, you still have 5 days. So I don't really necessarily see an advantage of that, unless, the inspector that you're trying to get, maybe it's an HVAC guy or a roofer or a plumber or whatever, you can't get them out there till later. So it's always a good idea to try and figure that out ahead of time. So if you need an extra inspection, get a hold of that inspector, plumber, electrical, roofer, find out how soon you can get them out there, and then deliver your notice over for your additional 5 days, because you might be able to get some extra days in there if they can't get till next week. Okay? Because remember, 5 days or less, we don't count the weekends or holidays. Right? So if I delivered that today is Wednesday, right? Tomorrow's day 1, Friday's day 2, day 3 is Monday, day 4 is Tuesday, day 5 is next Wednesday. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So that extra 5-day inspection period is really, really, really critical. Knowing those time frames is super important.
Yeah,
Okay.
it says right here, funny, buyer shall provide copy of inspector's recommendations, but the line above it says the opposite.
What line is that?
You can't hear me. So go right here under additional. So it says buyer provides seller a copy of the inspector's recommendation. But literally right here, it says do not provide inspection report. But granted, it's a recommendation and not the full report.
Right. Yes. Yeah, you want to
So
pull
some
out.
agents will still freak out about getting that.
Right. Yeah.
Which what I actually understood that to be, and I've done it, is where they'll have all the inspections that they've done and everything, and then it'll say remedies, and it'll have like the recommendation would be to have like an HVAC.
Right.
You still only want to send the one that you're asking about.
Right. You only want to send the
You
portion.
can't send them the whole thing.
You only want to send the
Correct.
portion that says that where the inspector says that additional inspection is needed.
And I've actually, on that one, what I've done is I've actually just copied and pasted it on an addendum or something, so that way they have
Yeah, very good. That's a great way of handling that.
Yep.
so that I'm not changing the lettering or the wordage of what they're recommending, but at the same time,
agree.
I'm not giving them a copy or anything of it.
Right. Now, here's the other thing, is it says here, if inspector so recommends, and buyer provides seller a copy of inspector's recommendation. It's not based upon buyer's subjective thinking that, well, I want the sewer inspected. There's an opportunity to ask for the sewer to be inspected, by the way, but it's not some subjective thing that the buyer I was just dealing with that this morning, where the buyer decided that they didn't trust the home inspector. They wanted this system checked out. And buyer doesn't get to subjectively decide that something else needs to be inspected. So there's kind of a protocol that's set up here. Now, that's not to say that both parties can't get together and seller agrees to let the buyer do another inspection or have a professional in, but according to the contract, it's all based upon the recommendation of the professional inspector. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those timelines and understanding what's needed here is, I think, super critical, and sometimes catches agents by surprise, and they're not too certain how to deal with that.
Now this is like an inspection without the repairs, right? Because like in
Correct.
the 35 are everything's set up and they say yes, we agree with it, accept the offer, they're going to do the repairs or whatever, has an inspection, they agree to do the repairs on it with the 35R, and then
Correct.
come back and they can have a re-inspection of those repairs, right? Before closing.
Correct.
It's of the expert, because the inspector's not an expert of HVAC and all that stuff. So that's generally what's going to be added that time for, because the inspector can only really recommend.
Right. So on the, let's see, what is it? It's under, where is it? D, I guess.
It kind
Or
of
is it
helps you
buyer's
figure
request?
out what you're going to ask for to be fixed.
Right.
The repairs.
That pre-repair
Yeah.
step.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to do any additional inspections before you come up with your list of repairs. So first you send over a notice, I want additional inspections. And then when that's done, then you will send over a request for repairs.
Right. And then where it says, if buyer elects to order and pay for such re-inspection, let's see, where's it at?
That's a reinspection.
Yeah. Where's it at?
You need some water.
I need some water. I went down the wrong pipe.
Yeah. So it says seller's repairs are subject to re-inspection and approval prior to closing
Right.
Yes.
by the inspector who recommended the repair, if the buyer elects to order and pay for such re-inspection.
Yeah.
So like, for example, one of the ones that I have going on right now, they had a long list of repairs to be done. It's got to qualify for FHA. They were bumping out the closing for a long time. And they keep bumping out to give the seller an opportunity to provide, to fix it all. There was nothing really saying it was done. And the buyer says, I need to know if the stuff is done before the appraisal comes out, which is on this date. So
Right.
they ordered a re-inspection, and, everybody was fine with it. And actually it was a good thing they did it, because that was done the day, 2 days before the appraisal, and there was still a list of things that hadn't been done that would definitely not go through FHA, and they were able to be addressed and handled before the appraisal. So
Yeah.
But that would also, if the appraisal came up with more work orders, then it'd be an extra cost. So there's probably two ways to handle that situation.
Yeah.
Because it can get costly when inspector has to come back out twice, lender, appraiser has to come back out.
Yeah.
right.
And really, it's not up to the inspector to tell you what is FHA required and not. It's the
Right.
appraiser. So that could have, I don't know if the appraisal went good, but that's great. But it could have been, well, here's 5 more things you have to do.
Right.
We're waiting on the
Could have
appraisal.
needed
Right.
another reinspection and the appraiser to come back out.
Right.
Yikes. Did it close?
The one I was telling you about?
Yeah.
No, we just got the appraiser out there this last weekend, and we're waiting to find out what the appraisal came back at.
Ooh. Fingers crossed for you.
I know it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that the only issue should be FHA, because the pricing is fine. I think I'm pretty sure it'll appraise the pricing. It's just
Work orders.
Right.
Yeah.
but hopefully, yeah, it does.
But you
close.
never know. Sometimes you get ones that don't look at anything, and then you get ones that, unfortunately.
So the last thing is the buyer's response to the seller's response to the buyer's response to the repairs. So I've had a few agents who've called, with their hair on fire because they haven't gotten a response back from the seller. They've sent over the 35R asking for these repairs. Seller hasn't responded.
Okay.
Seller has 3 days to
Days.
respond.
Okay.
It's at that point where the selling agent needs to have a serious conversation with the buyer, because no response is essentially the same as a rejection of buyer's requests. And so buyer needs to understand that they need to either accept it as it is or decide to pull out of a contract and keep their earnest money. So that's this attention buyer paragraph, lines 56 through 60. These time periods for negotiating repairs and modifications shall not repeat. Parties must either reach a written agreement or buyer must terminate this agreement by the buyer's reply deadline set forth in paragraph 1C2. Buyer's inaction during buyer's reply period shall result in a waiver of this inspection condition, in which case seller shall not be obligated to make any repairs or modifications whatsoever, and this contingency shall be deemed waived. So that's huge. So it's really important that you stay in communication with the other agent, the listing agent. If you're the buyer's agent, the listing agent, if they have not replied, if you have not, at day 3, you have not gotten a response, you really need to take action, decide what's going to happen.
So let's say that you talk to the seller's agent and they say, yeah, we're going to do that. We're getting back to, I'm just waiting for signature or waiting for whatever. And time is coming up on these deadlines. What do you know what I mean? What is the remedy there? Is it to?
Any deadline can be extended if it's done in writing.
Okay. So when they say we're getting it, we're going to get it to you or whatever, you need to get that in writing, signed, and make sure that
Right.
Okay.
So for instance, I had people who were out of country, not out of town. They were in Europe. There was no way they were going to be able to get back the 35R in 3 days. So we actually wrote an addendum where both parties agreed that seller would have a response by such and such a date, because they knew that they were going to be in someplace in Bavaria, I think it was, where they were going to have access to internet and they'd be able to sign documents or whatever.
Would you use a blank addendum for that, or is there something for it like they have for the month?
You just use a blank addendum. Yeah.
Okay.
Why wouldn't we just change and give more days in general? Right here, because it's not.
Because it's on the 35R. It's not the inspection period. It's the response to the.
Right, but it's also written here. So if I change it right here to 7 days, then I get 7 days.
Right.
I'm just thinking.
Sure.
For
Right.
certain scenarios going into it.
Right. You could extend that. Yeah.
Beforehand.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be 7.
No.
But instead of writing 3 days, if you know they're on
Yeah,
a camping trip or something.
Right. So she's talking about the seller's response in line 42.
Right.
Seller shall have so many days after receipt of buyer's request for repairs or modifications to give notice that seller agrees to some of the repairs or rejects all.
And that would be like, for example, if somebody like you were talking about had a vacation or had something they had to be out of town or something like that.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. You do that ahead of time.
Okay.
Okay. Well, those are the things I wanted to cover today. Mostly those are hot button issues that I've dealt with on the compliance side. Most everything else in these addendum, I think we've dealt with quite a bit and gone over, but it's just really important that we know, particularly here in this one, the timelines and how they work and on top of those. All right.